So our next speaker, his name is Vlad Sohkin, and he's a photographer committed to turning his lens to the topics that we as a society need to talk about. Vlad likes to turn his lens to the topics that we as a society need to talk about. Vlad uses his photos to take us on a journey from the rural hills of Papua New Guinea to the Australian government's processing centres for refugees in Nauru. Vlad helps us step inside the world of the communities he has visited and shares stories of his experience. Please welcome Vlad to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming here today. My name is Vlad Sohkin. I'm a Russian documentary photographer, currently based in Thailand, and I work a lot in the Pacific region. Most of my work is on human rights and environmental issues around the Pacific. So today I'm going to show you some of my work. I think it's connected to the Global Development Goals. And well, in my work I try through my lens to show people what happens in this part of the world. And for many of you probably, or for many others, Pacific is like a paradise place. A lot of probably, some of you went to Fiji for vacations or something, but in my work I try to show the other side of these places and to show people suffering, and I hope that with my pictures people will understand better what's going on there. First of my photo is from a project called Crying Mary. I worked on it in Papua New Guinea for almost 3 years. Last year it was published by Photo Evidence, an American publisher, as a book. And this work is on domestic and sexual and sorcery-related violence against women in this country. So in Papua New Guinea, it's women called Mary in the local language, Tok Pisin, and it believed that Papua New Guinea is one of the most dangerous places on earth to be a woman. For example, Doctors Without Borders claim that they are dealing with levels of gender-based violence normally only experienced in war zones. This is a picture of Banil. She came to the antenatal clinic of Port Moresby after having been sexually assaulted by her ex-boyfriend. The day after the separation, her former partner came to her parents' house and threatened her with a knife, dragged her to the bush area, and raped her for several hours. Banil's fathers managed to bring her to the hospital, but when I asked them if they're going to press any charges against the rapists, they were not really sure. They were afraid. This is a photo of 19 years old Julie and her son. She shows off her prosthetic legs in front of the house in Chimbu province of Papua New Guinea. She was 9 months old when her father chopped her leg off when he was disputing with her mother. Her mother brought her to the hospital, left her there, and she never came back. She was raised by a Catholic priest. This is a photo of Mama Rasta. She was accused of sorcery. A young man in her village died. No one could explain his death. So the villagers blamed her in practicing black magic and trying to kill and killing him. She was set upon by a crowd in his funeral, and she was beaten and strangled before she escaped. She lost her hand in the attack. Mama Rasta became a very close friend of mine. I visited her maybe 5 or 6 times. We still exchange, sometimes I call her daughter. For me, her story is important because she lost her hope. It happened maybe about 10 years ago, the accident, and she lives in the remote village, and nobody comes to visit her. Only like a few organizations that work in the area, they knew about her, but then she wanted very much to have a prosthetic hand, and there was no way to bring her to the hospital. Like, you know, you need to fly to Port Moresby, and it was very expensive. So when I saw that one doctor is coming to Papua New Guinea and bringing some prosthetic legs and hands, and he's going to be near her village. So with the organization that work there, we help her to get there, and now she's happy. She got her hand. In my work, I also try to show the other side of the problem. So when I worked on this project, I visited several prisons. I approached some gangs of Papua New Guinea and tried to understand why men doing these things to their wives and daughters. That's a picture of one of the rapists in a police cell. When I started working on gender-based violence, I came across another story in Papua New Guinea, a story about a local gay community. So the levels of violence they experience, levels of neglectance, they are close to what women experience there. So I spent some time in Hanuabada village in Port Moresby. That's probably the only place in Papua New Guinea where gay and transgender people are accepted by the community. But when they go out, especially for some night events or nightclubs, they can be and they are attacked by local people, mostly by men. There were cases of murdering. So it's another project. In this project, I wanted to show that these peoples, they need help as well, not only women. I also worked on police brutality in Papua New Guinea and tried to show how people, mostly sometimes innocent, how they do not have protection from their own government, from the police. In this image, you can see two young boys. One is 14 on the right side, the other one is 10 years old. They were locked in a prison cell with other adult criminals, and they were tortured by the police. Boy on the right side, his ribs were broken. Boy on the left side, boy on the right side. You can see scars on his head. He was tortured by a policeman with a knife. Access to parents or to the lawyer was not allowed to them. I showed these pictures to several organizations, and a few days later, one NGO helped to release these boys. This photo I took in the Manus Island in the detention center. With my work, sometimes it's very risky to go to several places. I'm happy that I work as a freelancer, so I'm not affiliated to any news organization, so it gives me more freedom. When I went to the Manus Island, I've been approached by Guardian Australia to take some images on Manus, but detention center was off the limits, so it's a highly secure facility. But it was possible just to drive by near it and take a picture from the car. I also went to Nauru and photographed life in this country, and also asylum seekers or refugees who live now in the detention base camp. As you probably, some of you know, that last year, in February last year, Nauruan government increased the fee for the journalist visa. So now it's cost about $8,000 to apply for it, and it's not refundable. So basically, no one can go there. I managed to get to the country. I posed as a tourist. Immigration treated me, they say, if you take pictures of the refugees, we're going to detain you and we're going to deport you from the country. And the country is so small. It has just the main road, like a circle road around. It's like 17 kilometers long. And anytime you take your camera out of the bag, the first car would stop and ask, what are you doing? What are you photographing? And all the people there are related to each other. They are friends or relatives. Some work in immigration, some work in the detention center. So it was kind of challenging. And I approached refugees between the shelves of the only supermarket in the country. So they go there shopping sometimes. So there I was approaching them and telling that I'm a photographer, I would like to meet you, I would like to, and I had to pretend that I'm a refugee when I got to these refugee camps. So I was surrounded by Iranian people, they were talking Farsi to me, and so we passed the guards, and I managed to take some of the pictures. Some of people were frightened, of course. They didn't want to show their faces or tell their real names. But they told me many stories about their lives before they decided to take the dangerous journey across the seas, and also about conditions in the detention center, both in the Christmas Island and in Nauru. You might remember the story that happened last December when a pregnant woman locked herself in a bus in Nauru, or in Darwin. She was transferred for Nauru. She was 8 months pregnant and had complications. So I met her and her husband, Adnan, a few months before this accident in their camp in Nauru. She was 6 months pregnant, and her husband told me that she has always pain in her abdomen, and anytime she goes to the hospital, they give her Panadol. That's it. And it was no access to ultrasound scan or anything. So they really wanted to go to Australia just to give birth in safety. He said, I know that I will not be allowed to stay there, and we don't want them. We just want to have a safe to have a healthy baby. After months of asking, finally the Australian government allowed them to go to Darwin to give birth, and they were promised that they will be placed in, as they already have refugee status, they will be placed in the community. But when they landed in Darwin, they realized that they were transferred to the detention center. So they spent almost 2 days in the bus, refusing to leave the bus, and they didn't want to go there. Another story I worked on, it was do I have time? Yeah. In the Marshall Islands. So just quickly, it's on the tiny island of Ibai in Kwajalein Atoll. It has total area of 0.36 square kilometer, and it has a population of 13,000 people. Most of them were moved by the American militaries when they started to do nuclear testing in the North Pacific. And this place has problems of overcrowding, poverty, outbreaks of infectious diseases, and high level of unemployment. And what I experienced, the access was also difficult to this place. What I experienced there is that many children are born with some health problems. So these girls, for example, she was born blind and her leg were paralyzed. So her parents and parents of other children blame the American government that their kids born like that just because of the aftermath of those tests. And the current project I'm working on is about climate change in the Pacific. It's about the communities that losing their land because of the sea level rise, and also because of illegal logging and deforestation and extreme weather events. I worked in Papua New Guinea on this illegal logging that is made by Malaysian logging companies. And last year, Oxfam Australia found out that some of these projects are supported by the 4 big Australian banks. So you can see here like collapsed login bridge, and it blocked the water stream. And people that had this water was like helping, in their gardening, so they lost their homes and they lost their gardens. This is one of the low-lying atolls of Kiribati, and you can see a village that is flooded by a high tide. When about 4 years ago, I approached one of the editors in Germany, asking like, I'm starting working on this story. Would you be interested to publish some of this? An editor told me, I'm not going to publish anything on climate change unless it's scientifically proved. So I went there, and I don't know how scientifically I can prove, but at least you can see the picture, how people live in these countries and how the water taking over their land. This man, 70 years old, paralyzed. In February or March of 2014 in the Marshall Islands, there was a king tide event, and the water came from one side of the ocean to the other side, to the lagoon side, and it flooded their house. Everyone left, and he couldn't because no one could carry him. So he and his wife, they will spend 2 days on the bed waiting for water to come to leave their house. This I photographed in Vanuatu this year, a cyclone PAM, which is also connected to climate change. This is Tuvalu. People live in the islands that were affected by climate change. And the last picture is from Papua New Guinea again. I like it very much because it gives some hope. So I really, like, my job as a photographer is just to show what happens in the world through my lens. But I think that all of us and each of us can change the world. So how? I don't know how, but honestly, but I think if we all try, we can give hope to these people, and hopefully our world will become a much safer place. Thank you.